welcome Scott Mehus. Is that correct?
Close. Mehus is good enough. That's
Mehus.
good.
Mehus. Okay.
Yep.
Mehus from the National Eagle Center in Wabasha, Minnesota. Great place. Visited there several times. One of our favorite stops along the Mississippi River there when we're in that neck of the woods. And with that, Scott is going to tell us a little bit about the center, how to visit, and then we're going to get into our program on golden eagles. So with that, I want to welcome Scott.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you and the Horicon Marsh Bird Festival for having me here tonight. I greatly appreciate that. I was really looking forward to coming up there last year, and I know everybody else was too, but at least we're finally able to have the festival and get together here and share a little bit together. So once again, my name is Scott Mehus. I'm the Education Director at the National Eagle Center in Wabasha, Minnesota. We're located right along the mighty Mississippi River. We're a great hot spot for wintering eagles. We have open water right outside our door all winter long. And so we generally have a 5-mile stretch where we see 200 to 300 bald eagles along that 5-mile stretch of open water. So it's a great time to come and see them during the winter. But we have over 50 nesting pairs of bald eagles between Lake City, Minnesota, which is 10 miles upriver from us, and Alma, Wisconsin, which is 8 miles downriver. We have over 50 nesting pairs of bald eagles in that small little area. So every single day that you come to the Eagle Center, you will definitely have an opportunity to see an eagle in the wild. And the cool part is being able to see the eagles right outside our door, while at the same time being able to see one of our educational ambassadors that we take care of. We take care of several different eagles that have been injured in the wild that can no longer survive on their own. And so they're now educational ambassadors going literally across the country. The bird that's featured here is now passed away. Her name was Harriet. But Harriet was on the Today Show, on the Leno Show, and the Colbert Report. She's also the bird that's on the Minnesota license plates. The Support Our Troops plates have a photo of an eagle. And it's that bird right there because of her work with our veterans. And so when you come to the Eagle Center, you're going to get a chance to see one of these ambassadors and at the same time see one outside, but also get a chance to explore our 2 floors of displays and exhibits that relate to the eagles. We have engaging classrooms when we can do those again. We're excited to get back to those. As we were talking about at the beginning, we're at least doing these virtually now, and they're fun, but it's more fun to have the interaction together, and we're looking forward to that. We have a beautiful observation deck where you can see those eagles right outside on the river. Now, for those of you that have been there before, we really appreciate it. As we have that grand old name, National Eagle Center, we are a nonprofit. So we really do thank you for supporting us with your visit over the years. And for those of you that have been here before, I want to let you know that I want you to come back again here soon because we have some exciting news. COVID has slowed us down a little bit, but on the back burner, we've been working on this for a while. We're working on some expansion plans here. So we're actually going to be closing here in October and remodeling some of our building. And it's not that old a building. We moved in here in 2006, but we have some exciting plans for the building. Part of that is we've been given a huge collection by this gentleman right here. His name is Preston Cook from California, who has been collecting everything related to eagles over the years. And I mean everything. So yes, he has original John James Audubon prints. We're looking at a Havel print here as well. But Andy Warhol painting of an eagle. But everything you can relate to an eagle being on or symbolized by, he has collected thousands and thousands of these things. And he's donated those to the Eagle Center. So we now have an opportunity for us to explore that part of the eagle symbolism as well. And so here you can see just a very small collection of that exhibit. That's a very small fragment of it that we have up now, but this new expansion will allow us to expand more of that. And I said before, everything. You can see a guitar over here from the Eagles, an Eagles poster. And even over here, you can see Wonder Woman. If you want to know why Wonder Woman is in the collection, come on down to Wabasha to find out why she is in a collection about eagles. I do hope that you'll come down to Wabasha, Minnesota. It's beautiful country down here. We hope that you'll come down and visit us. But I'd like to share more about my opportunity to work with eagles. And had wonderful opportunities working with bald eagles, but my favorite has always been out watching golden eagles and then also working with our golden eagle that we had here for many years, who unfortunately did pass away last year after a stroke, but I had wonderful memories working with this bird over the years. My fascination, though, with golden eagles really began many years ago. I was a student up at Vermilion College up in Ely, Minnesota, studying to be a park ranger, an educator of sorts. And my professor, Bill Teft, the guy right there in the middle, he would take his students down to Hawk Ridge in Duluth, Minnesota to learn more about the hawk migration. And we incorporated that into our materials in class. Well, while there, I really fell in love with the place. I was a bird watcher to begin with, been bird watching since I was probably about 10 years of age, but I really became fascinated with the raptors after visiting Hawk Ridge, spending a lot of time with Frank Nicoletti, who was the head counter there at the Hawk Ridge then. I spent a lot of the weekends down there learning, gleaning as much information about raptors as I could from him. And so I'm sure many of you in this group here probably are aware of Hawk Ridge, but for those that are not, Hawk Ridge is an amazing bird watching spot. We know it as a hawk watching spot, but it's really become a spot to watch a variety of birds that have nested across the northern parts of Minnesota and up into Canada. And for these raptors that are migrating south, they generally want to do that on days when the winds are going to push them towards the south. And so when the winds are to the north or northwest, it moves them. And as they get moved, they get pushed up here against Lake Superior. Now, they don't really want to cross Lake Superior, not because they're afraid of water, but because there is no thermal lift there. And they'd have to work, they'd have to flap hard to get over that and waste energy. So what they do instead is they funnel along the shoreline here, and eventually they go by this little ridge of land. This little ridge of land would provide orographic lift. Now, orographic lift is when wind hits an object and creates an updraft, and birds of prey will ride on that cushion of air that's created by that. And so it's an excellent opportunity for people to be standing there watching these birds migrating by, especially the hawks. So there are people there in the fall counting, scanning the skies, looking for birds. Then in the back area, there's some banding stations where they're trying to lure these birds in that are flying over. So like a red-tailed hawk that might be flying over, when it does fly over, the banders there will kind of pull a string on a pigeon, and this little pigeon is sitting out in the middle of this open area surrounded by these fine nets that the hawks hopefully don't see. But what they do see is this pigeon, and they think that it might be injured, and they're excited. They're like, hey, here's a meal. They dive down in there to catch that, but they catch into the net beforehand. And in fact, the pigeons, you know, they're used year after year. They're treated like royalty. They may get a little scared seeing that hawk come in the first time or two, but eventually realize that that hawk is going to get caught in the net. They then go out there and get the bird. They then bring it back and they take measurements or whatever they're doing for any projects they're doing. And then before releasing the bird, they're going to put a little aluminum band on that bird's leg so we can learn a little bit more about how long these birds live and longevity. And then oftentimes we'll bring them out to the overlook there. So maybe children may have an opportunity to release them back into the sky. And sometimes adults release some of the bigger birds like this red-tailed hawk heading off. And occasionally golden eagles are migrating by Hawk Ridge. In fact, Hawk Ridge averages about 150 golden eagles migrating by there during the fall season. So that is where I really fell in love with watching golden eagles back in the 90s, in the early 90s. Well, after graduating from Vermilion College, I got a job right away working for the Minnesota DNR non-game wildlife out of southeast Minnesota. And loved the beautiful bluff country down here, the Driftless area. We'll talk a little bit more about the Driftless area in a little bit. But I loved it and had an enjoyable time working with Blanding's turtles and Carnaby blue butterflies and a lot of cool things. Well, once fall started approaching, I started thinking about, hey, it's time to go back up to Hawk Ridge and look for some golden eagles. But I thought, oh, it's a long drive all the way back up there from southeast Minnesota. I don't have the opportunity to do that many weekends. So I started kind of thinking about golden eagles more and more. I then started kind of going through this golden eagle withdrawal. Like, I want to see golden eagles, but I don't want to make the drive up to Duluth. So I'd heard there are a couple of places in southeast Minnesota where bird watchers had been going for many decades looking for golden eagles and seeing them fairly consistently. So I went to those locations. One of them was near the Whitewater State Park, near the Whitewater Management Area. The other area was down in southeast Minnesota near Money Creek in Houston County. I went to those locations, and sure enough, I was finding golden eagles. But then as I looked at the landscape around me where I was at Whitewater and by Money Creek, I'm thinking, you know, where I'm at right now is basically in the Driftless area. The Driftless area is that part of Minnesota and Wisconsin here, and eastern Iowa, and a little bit of northwestern Illinois, that when the last glaciers came through, missed this area, and it provides that beautiful rolling landscaping that we have out here. So unglaciated, unpushed down. And so it's a beautiful topography of bluffs of several hundred feet to 400 or 500 feet high. And so I thought, okay, well, why aren't there golden eagles in other locations that look just like this throughout the Driftless area? So I started looking, and I started finding them. I started finding more and more, and I started to doubt myself a little bit because nobody had been reporting that many before. So I thought, maybe I'm misidentifying them. So I thought, you know what, I better go back to my bird book, look through my old bird guide, the old Roger Torrey Peterson bird guide, page through that, make sure that I'm identifying them correctly, because we know that young bald eagles in that first year of life look very similar to golden eagles. After I made the identification, I knew I was making the right identifications. So then I thought, okay, let's look at the map in the back and see if there's supposed to be any golden eagles around here. As I did that, I looked, there were no golden eagles anywhere near here. So I'm thinking, oh man, maybe I am wrong. Then I also thought, well, maybe I'm just too slow, because when I'm looking at a golden eagle in one valley, and then it takes me about 20, 25 minutes to drive several valleys away, and I see a golden eagle there, maybe I'm just seeing the same bird over and over because they're flying over the top of the bluff. Maybe I'm just double counting birds. So I decided back in 2005 to start a survey to get people out on the same day looking for golden eagles. I knew, for example, there were golden eagles here, 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 and up here, and here. But there was no way that I could be in all those places. Oh, there's another one down here in Iowa too. So I was like, I need to find some friends, train them, make sure they know what they're looking for, and let's all get out on the same day to look for these birds and see what we're finding. So did have those training sessions. We continue those to this day. Excuse me, and I'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. We had those training sessions to get people out looking for golden eagles. And then here are the results of the survey over the years. Excuse me. You can see that first year we had about 24 people out on that third Saturday in January. The count is always held on the third Saturday in January. So just after the Christmas bird counts are done, if you're ready to do another bird survey, I'd be looking for your help on that third Saturday in January. And that first year we had 21 golden eagles sighted. Now, as you can see, the numbers are going up here and then down. The reason that they went down in particular here was because we had fog 2 years back to back. And so that fog made it rather difficult to see little of anything, let alone a golden eagle that can be very hard to find out there. So we see these numbers here, and you'll see the 2021 survey. We had this year, we had over 175 observers out in southeast Minnesota, western Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, and northwestern Illinois. And we covered 47 different counties over this survey area. The coverage is about 25,000 square miles, 25,000 square miles that these surveyors are driving backcountry roads, forested habitat in the bluff country, looking for golden eagles and documenting the presence of them. And we had 77 different routes that were covered. And listen to this. Observers, the citizen science observers, they spent over 533 hours surveying, driving over 6,548 miles, driving these backcountry roads. And this year you can see we had a little over 120 golden eagles that were seen on this year's survey. Now, as we look back at those numbers, you'll see that the numbers are going up. I want to throw a little bit of caution in there. I don't think the population of golden eagle in this area is going up. I've been seeing fairly steady numbers on a personal level all these years for about 25 years now. But what I would say relates to the numbers here is that the surveyors keep coming back year after year. And as the surveyors keep coming back year after year, they have a better idea of where these birds are hanging out. Because these birds, these golden eagles, you can see one here and one here, they like to use the same trees year after year. In fact, the same branches year after year. This particular pair of golden eagles, and that's one thing that's also unique, is that I see them regularly hanging together as a pair throughout the winter season, a male and a female hanging together in the same winter habitat. Now, they're not nesting here, but they are wintering here together. And we'll talk more about that later. But you can see this particular tree, these birds have been using for over 15 years, and they've been using the same tree year after year. So you can imagine after a surveyor does the survey for the first time or two, they get to know where the golden eagles like to perch, because if they see them in flight when they're fairly visible, then when they go in the trees, they become a little bit harder to find. But if you know which trees to look for, your chances of finding them definitely goes up. And so that's why those survey numbers definitely have went up over the years. Now, typically, you'll see here the blue number is the number of golden eagles total. And then the reddish color is the percentage of adults versus juveniles. And so that typically is how it plays out. We typically see probably 70% on average or higher. We've been as high as 84% of the birds that are coming here are adult birds. So only 20% or so are of juvenile status, age-wise. So as we're out there looking, we're definitely looking over all of those bald eagles out there, because we want to make sure that we're making the correct identifications. And as I said before, those young bald eagles can look somewhat similar. So as we're looking, we're also counting bald eagles out there as well. And take a look at these numbers here from 2010, looking at the total numbers of bald eagles in blue. Once again, the green is the adults, and then the reddish color this time is the juveniles. But here are the numbers a little bit more current. So this year, in 2021, we observed 1,433 bald eagles. Think about that. I know many of you are bird watchers, and many have been bird watching for a long time. Many of you probably remember there was a time when we didn't have that many bald eagles left in the entire lower 48 states. In fact, in 1963, there was only about 417 nesting pairs of bald eagles left in the entire lower 48 states. So to have over 1,433 bald eagles on survey day is quite an amazing success story for that bald eagle, because the golden eagles, I should also point out, are not found near the water. We'll talk more about that later, but the bald eagles can be found near the water. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a 5-mile stretch of water outside the Eagle Center where we average about 500 bald eagles. The surveyors were nowhere near the water. They're out in the forested valleys. So it really goes to show you how many bald eagles winter in southeast Minnesota and western Wisconsin, even a well away from the river itself. Now, here's a number that I'm actually kind of proud of, and you're going to probably be questioning, well, why would you be proud of birds that were unidentified? But as I do the training sessions for the surveyors, in order to participate in the survey, you have to attend the training session. And now that we're virtual, be able to do more of that across the state. And I'll talk more about that with you later at the end, because there's opportunities for you up in your neck of the woods as well. But this is a number that I am satisfied with, because these are birds that we had a quick look at during this on the survey day, that somebody saw an eagle-sized bird, but just weren't able to get all the field marks to make sure we were sure that it was a golden eagle. And so I always tell my surveyors, I'd rather have a unknown than to make something up. We want to have as accurate data as possible. But as we're out there counting eagles, we're also counting other raptors as well. So it's like a roadside survey, counting these birds. Here you can see this year we had 480 red-tailed hawks on the survey, 154 rough-legged hawks on the survey. Kestrels were up this year at 154, which we were very excited for based on a couple of years of fairly low numbers. And as many of you know, we're all kind of concerned about those Kestrel numbers out there. And so, you know, one number doesn't make a banner year, but it does give you a little signal of hope, hopefully. We occasionally see a Peregrine falcon or a Merlin or two on the survey. A few Cooper's hawks here and there. Last year we had 10. Sharp-shinned hawks, we had 5 this year. Occasionally we get a red-shouldered hawk or a northern harrier or two on the survey. And every once in a while we see some owls as well. Somebody will find an owl on the survey day as well. That is a lot of different types of raptors then that we are seeing on this Golden Eagle survey that happens on the third Saturday in January. Well, all of those Golden Eagles that were reported, and we've been reporting, you know, are basically more than anybody had ever reported before. And so that started to get the attention of some folks, and in particular, the Minnesota DNR and also Mark Martell from Audubon, Minnesota, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit, because, you know, we knew that Golden Eagles were found in the Western United States. You can see here in the green, across the West, up into Canada and Alaska. But the Golden Eagle is also found across the Northern Hemisphere, Northern Africa, Europe, and Asia. You can also find the Golden Eagle. Now here in North America, though, in the past, we've always kind of thought of Golden Eagles kind of from the Missouri River west, across the prairies, across the foothills, into the mountains, even down into the desert Southwest. In fact, the Golden Eagle is found down into the northern half of Mexico. It is found on the Mexican coat of arms. So the big question that everybody had was, where are these Golden Eagles coming from? Because we thought maybe they were coming from out west somewhere, and then they just kind of got off course, and they got pushed further east till they hit up to Lake Superior, come funneling by Hawk Ridge, then funnel off down into southern Minnesota, find the bluff country, the driftless area with the hilly area, miniature mountain areas, the foothills we'll call them, and said, hey, that's similar habitat to what I'm used to out west. I'm going to spend the winter here and then just go back out west again. So we thought these birds were maybe just off course and ended up in an unknown place. So the question was from Mark Martell from Audubon, Minnesota, at the time, who had done a lot of work with ospreys and had learned about my work with the Golden Eagles, and said, hey, love to get together here and put some satellite transmitters on these birds and see if we can see where these birds are going. And so we decided to form a partnership with a variety of folks, Audubon, Minnesota, the National Eagle Center, the Minnesota DNR non-game program, Wisconsin DNR, and also the Fish and Wildlife Service. We decided that we would like to put some satellite transmitters on these birds to figure out if we could find out where they're coming from. Thankfully, Carrol Henderson, who was the head of the non-game wildlife DNR for many years, basically started that program up, got us some money, and we're able to get some transmitters. So here you can see a transmitter, the size of it here. Here you can see compared to a $100 bill, just to get an idea of how big the transmitter is. These transmitters cost about $3,500 a piece to purchase, and then about $1,500 a year to get the data from the satellite company. And so we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is this battery that is sitting here. It's not what runs that unit. The battery is there. It's a D battery to give you an idea of the weight of the transmitter. So imagine holding a D battery in your hand. That's the weight of the transmitter. So it's fairly light. Then also the birds would have a leg band put on their leg as well before being released. As we said before, that'll send a signal up into space to a satellite and then back to Earth. And then we can find more about these birds. Now you can see here, this is their first bird released, a bird named Whitey, because of the whitish golden color there. You can see this little Teflon ribbon here that runs around to the front of the bird and then back to the other side. And there's one on the back side as well. And so it's kind of like wearing a backpack. Imagine it's like a backpack. Eventually that Teflon ribbon will degrade and the transmitter will fall off. But the transmitter will hopefully give us data for about 3 to 5 years. Now, in the old days, you had to drive around in a truck with a big antenna on your roof to go find where these animals were. But now we can sit in our comfort of our home while we watch them precariously from afar. So what we decided to do is we wanted to get some opportunities to lure these Golden Eagles in so we could trap them. And so they had suggested we put out some dead deer carcasses, make them as appetizing as we could. That's why we're chopping it up. Then carry them up onto the hills, into the areas where the Golden Eagles were hanging out. And then hopefully we'd be able to lure some Golden Eagles in. So we put trail cameras up there, see what was coming in. And we had lots of things coming in, crows and red-tailed hawks, even a rough-legged hawk coming up on a steer that we put out. And so that's kind of a unique picture. Also, lots of bald eagles coming in to feed on those carcasses. But very few images of golden eagles. But hey, we got things at night too. So skunks and raccoons coming in. Here we had a deer. This buck was eating, hold on, the dead deer's stomach contents. That's what it was eating. So it shows you that when times are tough out there, especially during the wintertime, these animals got to find food wherever they can. And that's what this particular deer was doing. But very few images of golden eagles coming in, feeding on those carcasses. So we said, okay, what else then is on the menu for these golden eagles? What are they feeding on if they're not feeding on these dead deer carcasses? Well, over the years, I've seen them primarily feeding on three things. Fox squirrels, number one. Fox squirrels here, a little bit bigger than a gray squirrel, but they also do feed on the gray squirrels as well. And then eastern cottontails. So we got our permits from the state DNR that allowed us to utilize these animals in a safe way that we could lure these golden eagles in. And we put those animals out there to lure the golden eagles in, and we caught birds. We caught 27 red-tailed hawks. We didn't want to catch red-tailed hawks, but we caught 27 red-tailed hawks because red-tailed hawks also like squirrels and rabbits, and they were coming into our traps. And so, we'd have to go out there in the morning and set these traps, sit in our blind, from sunrise, before sunrise, we'd set the traps, then wait for sunrise and wait for the bird to come in. And then if a red-tailed hawk came in to capture that animal and got caught in the trap, we'd then have to go out there then, and we shown the local golden eagles that this is probably a suspicious area. I might avoid this area. So we said, okay, what else then is on the menu? Well, speaking of the menu, I got to point this out. Now, as a bird watcher, you may know that birds have an area here in the esophagus called the crop. It's a widening of the esophagus that holds excess food. Now, a red-tailed hawk's stomach is, smaller than a small walnut in size. So there's not enough room for all their food inside their stomach. So they have this widening the esophagus that holds the food. The reason I point this out is this is a bird that we caught that came in to feed on one of our rabbits that was in the trap, and it had just eaten something else, and so it had a very full crop. So it just goes to show you that whenever animals are offered food or have that opportunity to find food, they're going to take advantage of it, even if they had just eaten. So we said, okay, what else is on the dinner plate of these birds that's not on the red-tailed hawk's menu? So we said, you know what? Another thing that I see them feeding on is wild turkeys. Yes, wild turkeys. I've seen golden eagles numerous times over the years chase and kill a wild turkey. A wild turkey definitely weighs more, in most cases, more than that golden eagle does. So it's pretty amazing opportunity to witness that. So we said, okay, can we use wild turkeys? Well, the DNR at that point said, no, you could not use a wild turkey for that project. So we said, okay, I'd learned through the grapevine that there were these black Spanish turkeys that looked just like a wild turkey. And we hoped that we might fool a golden eagle into thinking this was a wild turkey. So we had a local FFA student raise these over the summer. By fall, they were ready for us to use in our project. And this right here is a golden eagle that came in to feed on one of those turkeys, but instead of getting the turkey, it went into our net and we were able to utilize it for our project. Our first golden eagle that came in injured was a bird found in a leg hold trap in Wisconsin. Unfortunately, it got caught in this leg hold trap, had 2 gaping wounds on each side of its leg. It was taken to the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota. They're able to do some amazing work there. They did some skin grafts, some feather follicle grafts, and we were able to release that bird back into the wild again. And it was our first bird with a transmitter. Another bird was a bird flying over Highway 10 near Fairchild, Wisconsin, got caught in the draft of a vehicle and got slammed in the pavement. When it got slammed in the pavement, luckily it didn't break any bones, because remember that full crop of the red-tailed hawk? Well, this particular bird had just had a big meal as well. And so she had a full crop. And so when she hit into the pavement, that crop was full. That helped cushion the blow. So no broken bones. We were able to release that bird. And luckily for us, these 2 gentlemen here on either side of Mark here, they were going turkey hunting that day. and instead saw this golden eagle go down the roadside. So they pulled over, called the DNR. They waited 2 hours for the DNR to come and get that bird, and they skipped going turkey hunting that day to help this golden eagle. Now, Hawk Ridge in Duluth, Minnesota, one day a couple of years ago in the fall migration, they saw a golden eagle flying low. They pulled on that pigeon in the banding station. The golden eagle said, "Hey, that looks like a good lunch. I'm hungry. I'm going to go down there and catch that," and got caught in the net. And then we were able to release that bird with a transmitter, as you can see right here on the back. And then this is a bird that we found over by Wapaka, Wisconsin, that was coming into a deer carcass. And the landowner called us about it, wondering what kind of an eagle it was, whether it was a bald eagle or a golden eagle. And I said, if this bird keeps coming back to deer carcass, let us know. And he did. And a gentleman that I know really well, Gene Jacobs, over by Stevens Point, from Linwood Springs Raptor Center, he came over and helped us trap this bird, and we released it with a transmitter. So we've released several different birds here with these transmitters on these birds' back, set them off into the air. And the big question then was, where are these birds going? Now, I will point out here in this picture, it really does stand out here, but this was just attached, this transmitter. And so here we can see the solar panel that'll recharge the battery over and over. That's what that is right there. But by the time that the bird kind of molts this in, it'll work its way down into the feathers. And literally the only thing that we'll see sticking up at that point is the little antenna. And so that makes it harder to see. So here's one of those golden eagles off. It's a big question then. Okay, which way are these birds going for the breeding season? Where do they go? Are they heading out west like everybody thought they were doing? Or maybe not, as we're learning maybe a little west, but as you can see here, some tracking birds from this part of Minnesota, as you can see, migrating north. In this case right here to this bird right up here, 2,326 miles into Nunavut. Nunavut is where this bird nested. Here we can see a bird nesting above the Great Slave Lake here in the Northwest Territories. We've also had birds go here through into northern Manitoba and points north as well. So not completely west like everybody thought to this population out here. This was a different population of golden eagles that pretty much everybody had been overlooking in this area of the country. This is that bird that I talked about from Wapaka, Wisconsin. Here she goes from Wapaka, 2,326 miles to Nunavut to her nesting site. And we tracked her to that nesting site for 4 years in a row. Now listen to this. 3 of those years, she arrived back at her nesting site on exactly April 3rd, 3 years in a row. Can you imagine? The last year we tracked her there, it was April 6th. A few days behind schedule, but that is pretty amazing reliability to arrive back to the same place 3 years in a row. I think airlines could learn something from that. Well, the red octagons here on the map, we've talked about this before. These birds here, these are areas where the birds spent the summers or nested in some cases. We've talked about these birds, but we've also had birds go into this part of Canada here along the Labrador Sea as well. And so it's a much wider spanning area across northern parts of Canada that these birds are coming into this area just below the Arctic Circle up here. And so we kind of thought we had it all figured out, that these birds were coming from up there. They were coming down to the driftless area here of southeast Minnesota, western Wisconsin, that unglaciated area, spending that time there, and then going back north again. Well, then along comes Jack. This is Jack the golden eagle right here. This is that bird that was caught up at Hawk Ridge after coming into the feed on one of those pigeons. And this bird then, after leaving Duluth, Minnesota, right here, sorry, get my pointer here, leaving Duluth, Minnesota, flew south and went down to near Dubuque, Iowa. And I'm like, okay, this is where he's going to spend. We're still in the driftless area. This is where the bird is going to be spending the winter. He was there for about a week. He was just fueling up because then he continued the rest of his journey down into southern Missouri and northern Arkansas. In fact, we tracked him to southern Missouri and northern Arkansas for 4 years in a row. And so much beyond the driftless area compared to what we originally were thinking. In fact, Brian Dirks up at Camp Ripley, which is a military installation in Minnesota, north of the Twin Cities region in the forested area, they've been seeing golden eagles come into trap sites there that they were trying to lure in wolves. And we then loaned them a transmitter, and they have now since released several other birds on their own, golden eagles with satellite transmitters from the forested area. So once again, outside of the driftless area. So we're still learning more about this population. Now, Mark and I are part of a group of scientists, researchers, faculty from a variety of agencies, public and nonprofit, and federal and state organizations that are studying golden eagles in the eastern United States here. And this is all of these lines on here, folks, are tracking lines from golden eagles that have been released. They've had a lot of money in the eastern states to put on satellite transmitters. And so that's why you see so heavily marked out here is they've gotten a lot of money because of wind turbine placement out there. They wanted to make sure that placement of the wind turbines is correct. So they wanted to learn as much about migratory pathways for these birds of prey. And so they've done a lot of work out in the eastern states. So just amazing to see the tracking. And we know that birds also, even down into northern Florida, there have been golden eagles reported as well in the last few years as well. So a bigger population than we thought. I would also like to point out that one of the things that the Eastern Golden Eagle Working Group has been doing is trying to put together a number of golden eagles that are wintering in the lower 48 states here, east of Minnesota, or Minnesota and eastward during the wintertime. And through studies that have been done, collecting data from hawk watching sites across the eastern states, we estimate about 5,000 golden eagles that are wintering in this area of the eastern United States during the wintertime. So many more than most people had realized were here. This is an interesting story I'd like to share with you quickly if you ever have time to look this up. These are, this is down in Kentucky, south of Louisville, called the Bernheim Forest. And there they had a golden eagle that was coming in a couple of years ago to a site. And so they put a transmitter on that bird, and that bird then left and then flew over here through Minnesota, up here into Manitoba near Churchill in some waterfowl production area. Spent the summer there. I think they tracked it there for 2 years. Then they noticed that this bird was hanging out with a partner in Kentucky, just as I had mentioned at the beginning of the program that I see the male and female hanging together throughout the winter time. Well, they were observing that in Kentucky as well. Well, lucky for them, they were able to capture this other bird's partner and put a transmitter on that bird. So the big question was, okay, are these birds maybe even migrating together? After wintering together, do they migrate together? Well, we've learned in this particular case that they are wintering together and they are spending the summers together, but they're migrating 2 different ways. The one bird always goes on the western side of the Great Lakes past Duluth and heading up that way. The other bird always goes over into Michigan, up into the Mackinac Straits, and crosses there and then heads around the Great Lakes and up into Canada. And they generally arrive within a very short period of time of each other up in those areas, but they go 2 separate ways. So pretty amazing information that we're learning on these birds that are migrating up in the northern parts of Canada. So those maps that look like this in the back of my Peterson guide, those maps are definitely changing. And even since this map was done a couple of years ago, that we'll be updating those maps, I think, even more based on the research that we're doing. And so here's a map that I showed you at the beginning. Here we have a much broader swath here across this area of an area for these birds that are wintering in our areas during the winter months. The areas here in southeast Minnesota, back to the driftless area that I shared with you earlier, one of the very key areas that I see golden eagles hanging out near is a place that we call a goat prairie. A goat prairie is sometimes called a bluff prairie or a dry prairie. These are areas that are on the south and west facing sides of the bluffs. So they get a lot of sunlight. So they're fairly dry. There's a rapid transpiration rate there. So trees really don't grow well there, but prairie grasses thrive in that environment. And so that's one of the reasons they're called a goat prairie. Now the goat prairie habitat here in southeast Minnesota, western Wisconsin, in fact, most of the goat prairie habitat that remains is in Wisconsin, has the most amount left, and that's about 0.1%, which is pretty small, but very important because it's very critical habitat to a variety of different animals and birds, wildflowers, and prairie grasses, and amphibian reptiles as well. And so we'll talk more a little bit about this in a minute. But the reason they're called goat prairies is that when the settlers first arrived here, the livestock were allowed to graze the hillsides, but the goats were the only ones that could get to those very steep hillsides, hence the term goat prairie. Now, this is what a goat prairie would typically should look like in the landscape. And here is one during the wintertime that has a lot of open area here. But I think one of the things that golden eagles rely on these goat prairies for is surprising prey that might be out in the feeding in the open. So imagine there's a wild turkey out feeding in this open. That golden eagle can kind of come along the backside, maybe the way you've seen a Cooper's hawk working down the neighborhood around the houses, hoping to scare birds and bird feeders. They kind of make the corners. Well, imagine a golden eagle kind of doing a very similar thing behind this bluff, coming up and over on the edge, seeing a turkey out in the open, has a pretty good chance of hopefully going down there and being able to catch that. But our goat prairies, unfortunately, most of them don't look like that today, because today we've stopped fire in the landscape, whether that was fire started by lightning or whether it was fires that Native Americans were setting to the landscape to provide game feeding areas and things like that. We stopped the fire, and once we did that, in particular, one species called red cedar. Red cedar was historically here in southeast Minnesota and western Wisconsin when the original land surveys were done. But it was usually restricted to the rocky outcroppings where fire never really got to. But then once we stopped the fire, those seeds started dropping down into the prairie areas, and then they started to take over and we're getting choked out. And so we're choking out that habitat for a variety of things, but more importantly, making it very difficult for the golden eagles that live in the driftless area to be able to find food sources out in those open areas. So this is the habitat of what it really should look like. In fact, this is the similar habitat there. Now, thankfully, we're doing cutting of the red cedar in the landscape. We're also returning fire to the landscape, doing prescribed burns, conservation work, restoration work, and we're bringing some of that landscape back here to the driftless area. As I mentioned before, there's a whole host of wildflowers and grasses and things that rely on this very critical habitat. It's one of our most threatened ecosystems in the state of Wisconsin and Minnesota. A lot of pollinators and insects relying on that habitat and those flowers that are there, beetles and things like that, spiders, badgers, Wisconsin state mammal, the badger, there's old Bucky himself hanging out there, meadowlarks for you bird folks there, some birds to look at, bobolinks, anybody? Lark sparrows and skinks, and even timber rattlesnakes rely on that habitat. Now, remember when I said that Wisconsin holds a lot of the last remaining bluff prairie out there, goat prairie habitat? Well, most of that is owned by private citizens. It's in private ownership. And so when landowners are being approached by conservation officials, Wisconsin DNR managers, when they go to a landowner and say, we'd like to help you restore that goat prairie habitat up there on your hillside, because it's very important for, butterflies and birds, and they may not be so interested in that. And then you may say skinks, and they'll be like, well, what's a skink? And then you say also timber rattlesnakes. And you can probably pretty much what happens when you say that to the landowners, this is what happens. The door is in your face because they don't really know, and they're fearing the rattlesnake and its role in the environment. And we need to overcome that. But if we talk about the golden eagle, also relying on that same habitat, golden eagles are pretty magnificent creatures. I mean, you all tuned in tonight to learn a little about these magnificent creatures. Who would not love looking at this beautiful bird soaring overhead over that landscape? And then you also talk about how cool they are and what they can do. We mentioned earlier that I've seen them go after wild turkeys. Well, I've also seen them do this as well. This was taken in Buffalo County, Wisconsin, a couple of years ago. Here's a golden eagle coming in after a white-tailed deer. You can see the other deer are running as well. Take a look at this. This is a juvenile bird. I point that out because I want you to show you another one. This was just taken this last fall here in Buffalo County, Wisconsin as well, right across the river from Wabasha. Here's another golden eagle coming in after a white-tailed deer. Notice though, this is another juvenile bird. Every time that I've seen a golden eagle go after a deer, and I've never seen them be successful, but they tried, it's always been juvenile birds. So it's kind of like our teenagers, right? Yeah, I can handle that. I can do that. Then they realize maybe that is just a little bit too much. And then they have to back off again. But then one thing that they can take advantage of is those wild turkeys. Well, another cool thing that I'd like to share with you is that there are several different organizations that are actually renting out goats to go to goat prairie habitats and mow down, essentially, the vegetation down there and help to restore that goat prairie habitat by utilizing goats. And so it's kind of a cool project to see the goats going back to that habitat and helping us preserve this important habitat that is important wintering habitat for these golden eagles. Now, I'm guessing that many of you are hoping to, if you've not seen a ruby-throated hummingbird yet, you'll be seeing them hopefully soon. We've just had a few here in southeast Minnesota so far, but we know that there's lots of other neotropical migrants that are right on their heels coming in to get our excitement up here in May. It's that wonderful time of the year for bird watchers. And so orioles and grosbeaks and thrushes, all different types of warblers coming in. There's a parula and a cerulean. There's a prothonotary, scarlet tanagers. These are birds that are going several thousand miles down into Central and South America to spend the winter. Indigo buntings, they will also be coming here soon. And they're also going several thousand miles down into South America to spend the winter and then coming back to here to breed. Well, we often think about these birds as ours. And they are, but we also share them with the folks in Central and South America, for example. And so we often, in Audubon groups and bird watching clubs, we're always making sure that we're concerned about that habitat down in those areas, and making sure that habitat is protected. And we should be doing that because we share those birds together. But here we have a bird, the golden eagle, that's coming out of Canada, migrating several thousand miles south, coming into Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa, and point south, relying on us here for a good winter habitat. So we have to have that habitat available. And one of the things this survey and the citizen science project that we're working on is getting state agencies such as the DNR aware of these birds that are wintering here and the habitat requirements that these birds do require, because they need that good habitat here in order to get back up into that habitat. For example, this is the bird that we talked about from Wapaka, Wisconsin. Remember, coming into the deer carcass 3 years in a row to the same habitat? Well, this is her habitat right here. A couple of years ago, Mark and I were at a conference and we were talking to a researcher who was going to be up in Nunavut. And we gave him the coordinates of where we knew the bird was coming from. And this is what Golden Eagle Jeanette looked at across her landscape. And this is where her nest is. Now, we really have a hard time seeing it, but it's right here, this little dark spot right here. This is the nesting area for Jeanette. This is where the satellite transmitter pings were coming from. When the pilot flew by, he took this picture and we're able to confirm there is where the nest is for that bird that returned to the same site 3 years in a row. So pretty cool information that we're learning on these birds. One of the things that I wanted to share with you tonight, before we get into some questions, is I wanted to share some tips with you for you to be able to hopefully be able to identify golden eagles in your area. As I said before, these birds are found anywhere across Wisconsin, Minnesota, especially during the migration season. Now, these golden eagles migrate into our area in mid to late October, and they're here until late February and March. That's the adults. The juveniles, we might see into April. We might even see some golden eagles yet into May. But then generally, once we get into June, July, August, and September, in the first part of October, we do not have any golden eagle sightings in Minnesota or Wisconsin. But other times we have that opportunity. And as you saw on that map of all the tracking areas, they are found across wide parts of Wisconsin. So I want to help you be able to identify these birds next time. First and foremost, though, habitat, habitat, habitat. It's water. Speaking of water, excuse me. It all comes down to water. If you are near water, aquatic habitat, you are more than likely looking at a juvenile bald eagle in its first year of life. Now, older bald eagles, as they age, can look a little bit different, but those first year birds, yeah, they do look a lot like a golden eagle. But in the 25 years now that I've been watching golden eagles, I live, by the way, right near the river, a block away. I look out at the river every single day from my office. In those 25 years, I've only seen the golden eagle within 30 feet of the water on one occasion. They're not fish eaters. As we've learned, they're in the forested valleys where they're feeding on rabbits, squirrels, and even wild turkeys. So big brown eagles that we see along our lakes and our rivers, those are going to be juvenile bald eagles in that first year of their life. So beach, bald eagles, okay? Next thing that I want you to look at, if you have a bird this close and you've got your binoculars on it, take a look at the legs. The lower part of the leg of the bald eagle is bald. So remember that. The bald eagles don't have bald heads. Remember, in Old English, B-A-L-D-E meant white. So it used to be called the bald-headed eagle, which meant white-headed eagle. They then changed the meaning of bald to something else. And so bald eagles do have a lot of feathers on their head, but they do not have any on their legs. They belong to a family of eagles called the fish or sea eagle family, which there are several of these around the world. And all of these eagles have bald legs because they live near water. They're dipping their legs regularly into the water can run right off again. But if they had feathers there, that might be a problem, especially in the wintertime, getting iced up. So they have bald legs so the water can run right off. The golden eagle belongs to a family of eagles called the booted eagle, or you'll also hear true eagle family. But I like the term booted because the feathers go all the way down like boots down their legs. So if you can look at the legs and they're feathered or booted, we are looking at a golden eagle. So as we look here, we can see this bird right here has feathers going all the way down here like boots. So this is a golden eagle in this picture. Now, bald eagles in that first year of life, as I mentioned before, can look a lot like a golden eagle. But one thing that I want you to really pay attention to is the color of their beak and the size. Now, I know size can be hard to compare with, you only have one bird to look at, but I still want you to focus on the fairly large size of this beak right here, and also that it's black all the way through, okay, its entire length. For a bald eagle in its first year of life, it's going to be all dark. Remember, in that first year of life is when it's going to look most like a golden eagle. Here is a golden eagle's beak. Now, I know this is hard to see the size difference, but what I want you to notice is the color difference. So a golden eagle's beak is dark at the tip, then bluish gray, and then yellow. And it'll always be that way from juvenile to adulthood. Whereas we look back at the bald eagle, it's going to be all dark in its first year of life. As it ages, it'll become more and more yellow, but it will not have that tri-colored look of dark at the tip, then bluish gray, and then yellow. Now here you can see a golden eagle beak that I think does look pretty small. In fact, a golden eagle's beak reminds me more of a red-tailed hawk beak, but there again, they're feeding on rabbits and squirrels, similar things that we found that the red-tailed hawks were feeding on as well. So once again, though, dark at the tip, then bluish gray, and then yellow. So bald eagles have those big old beaks. So just like this guy, I'm thinking some of you know who this is. If you're of the right age, this is Jimmy Durante. Jimmy Durante was a nice guy. He was a good singer. He was a nice guy, but he wasn't known for that. He was known for his big old schnoz. Well, next time you see a bald eagle, think about Jimmy Durante. It's a big old schnoz, where the golden eagle's beak is much smaller, as you can see here in comparison. So they don't have a big schnoz. It's much smaller schnoz, more like Michael Jackson's schnoz there between 1990 and 92. All right, but here is the bald eagle. There it is, that big dark beak all the way through. And there is the adult with that yellow beak. So in between this and this, it'll be varying amounts of gray, black, and yellow mixed in. The golden eagle gets their name from that golden coloration on their nape. The nape is this area right here, And this is where they get the name golden eagle from. They also have a little bit of a golden leading edge to the wing, and we'll look at that in a picture as well. But they get the name golden from the golden brown feathers on the back of the nape. As you can see here, once again, point out, dark at the tip, bluish gray, and then a yellow beak. Here's another golden eagle. And as I said earlier, that color can vary quite a bit. We talked about that bird named Whitey that had a fairly whitish coloration. Here we have a bird that's very vivid in gold coloration. And here's yet another one with a little bit different coloration. As I mentioned before, we can also see some golden on that leading edge of the wing right here. So here we can see the golden nape right here. And then we also see golden on the leading edge of the wing. Now, be careful because young bald eagles can have golden feathers in a variety of places. This particular bird has some golden feathers kind of on that leading edge of the wing, but it also has golden eagle feathers right here. So I always tell you, use more than one field mark. Doesn't have the golden on the nape, does it? Yeah, and so, but it does have golden on the leading edge, but more importantly, it's down here too. And there's some other field marks that we'll look at here in a minute. So here is another bald eagle, excuse me, big dark beak, no golden nape, but it does have some golden brown feathers on its back, but not on the nape the way a golden eagle should be. Here is a golden eagle in flight. This is an adult. Here we can see the golden nape and a little bit of that gold there on that leading edge of the wing right there. There you can see that little bit of that nape wrapping around a little bit. I'll show you with this picture here is sometimes when people see that in the distance, especially when the sunlight's beating down on that, they think they might see a bird with a white head thinking it might be a bald eagle because that gold can sometimes hit that light just right. Also remember that juvenile bald eagles, especially a juvenile female bald eagle that is in its first year of its life, will be bigger than its dad, okay? So remember that in eagles, the females are larger than the males, okay? And so in this particular photo, we have what appears to be a male bald eagle, at least 5 or 6 years of age. That's when they get the white head and tail. And then here we have a bird that's in its first year of its life, and it's quite a bit bigger. One, because it's a female, but also because young eagles in their first couple of years of life, they have longer flight feathers, longer flight and tail feathers that first year of life by about this much. Those longer flight and tail feathers are what we might call training feathers, allowing them to soar a little bit more easily with those longer feathers that first year of life as they learn the skills they need in order to survive before moving on. So here we've got a golden eagle in flight here. Here's that, there's right there, golden nape, and that little bit of the golden leading edge there as well. Here is another golden eagle. There's that golden nape. Once again, a tri-colored beak and a little bit on that golden leading edge. I'm hoping you're all telling me in your mind that this is a golden eagle, dark at the tip, bluish gray, and then yellow. When you do come to southeast Minnesota and western Wisconsin, Buffalo County is a hot spot of golden eagles. So if you get down this way, or if you get down this way, just stop at the Eagle Center and ask me for some secret spots or some spots to show you. I'd be glad to do that for you. But when you are out there looking, I always want you to concentrate in this area here where the money sign is, because that's where the golden eagles perch in the driftless area. They don't perch in the trees in the open area. They don't perch down in the low parts of the bluff. They rarely ever perch up at the top trees, but they always perch in these trees right about this line, which makes them very difficult to find. But they want it that way because they're going after rabbits and squirrels and turkeys that all have pretty good eyesight, that they want to blend in with the landscape. In fact, they blend in so much that sometimes I look at squirrels' nests in the trees thinking that it might be a golden eagle. That's how much they can blend into the landscape. Hence why they've been so overlooked over the years. You're probably saying, well, Scott, that's great if we get that great of a look, right? But most of the time when we're out in the field seeing these birds, they're looking something a little bit like this. They're up there a ways, and even with binoculars, we can zoom in a little bit, but we're still not seeing everything we need to see. Well, sometimes though we can with binoculars or even a camera, even just a regular camera, just take a snapshot and we can maybe zoom in to see some things that could help us make identification. One of the things I want to point out here is bald eagles up here. These are all juvenile bald eagles. Here's the adult golden eagle. but these are juvenile golden eagles here. What I want you to notice is that the bald eagles have some white here in the outer part of the wing. We call that the wrist area. You'll also notice that golden eagles also in their juvenile stage have some white in the outer part of the wrist as well. What I want you to notice next, though, this is the thing that I want you to pay attention to, is that the bald eagles always have white here in the axillaries, okay? The axillaries are basically the wing pits, okay? They're where the wing and the body meet, so we're going to call those wing pits. Bald eagles have white in the wing pits. The golden eagles do not. So if you see white in the wing pits, you are looking at a bald eagle, okay? So here is a picture of a golden eagle with the white in the outer part of the wing and not in the wing pits. You'll also notice that young bald eagles can sometimes have a tail that is somewhat similar to this, but once again, use more than one field mark. Now, sometimes that white that we see here can also sometimes appear on the upper surface of the wing as well. But here is a bald eagle flying overhead. One, if we look closely, we can see the bald legs, but more important, we can see that it has white in the axillaries. That really is the best tip for you to use. Here then is a bird with white in the outer part of the wing. This is a juvenile golden eagle. Here we have two eagles interacting, a bald eagle, adult with the white head and tail. Here's an eagle, we're not quite sure what it is, but if we look, we do see some bald legs. We see a dark beak and a big beak. It matches the size of that, and it has white in the wing pit. So one of the ways that I want you to remember that the bald eagle is our nation symbol. And there's a nation symbol, it probably should put some deodorant on underneath the arms. And so you can see the deodorant, you are probably looking at a juvenile bald eagle. So deodorant equals bald eagle. Bald eagle, as our nation symbol, also should probably have a pretty big head. It's a big responsibility to be our nation symbol. So bald eagles do have big heads. Look at this. They have as much head sticking out in front as they have tail sticking out behind. So once again, bald eagles have big heads, a lot sticking out in the front and a lot sticking out behind. Once again, a big head sticking out there. Here's another one, a lot of head, a lot of tail. Compare that with the golden eagle. A lot of tail sticking out back there, but very short head projection, very short head projection. If you look closely, you'll see the nape, and you'll also see the white in the outer part of the wing. Here's another one. A lot of tail sticking out back there, but very short head projection. Once again, there's the golden nape, and there's the white in the outer part of the wing. Here is anybody? Golden eagle. You can see the golden leading edge there and that golden nape. This is an adult. Remember, the adults lack these patches of white like the juveniles do. This is an adult right here. All right, excuse me. So this is a test for your bird watchers. Hopefully you know, it's a turkey vulture. Turkey vulture, the reason I throw that in is because they have a very short head projection as well, okay? The other thing that I want you to notice is we all know that turkey vultures fly with their wings up in what we call a dihedral, okay? A shallow V. Well, bald eagles, I'll try to get into view here. Bald eagles hold their wings flat when they soar. Turkey vultures are like this, and golden eagles are in between. So not flat like a bald eagle, not up like a vulture, but in between. So if you're in the wintertime anywhere in Minnesota during the winter and you see a bird with a small head projection and a slight dihedral, I want you to think golden eagle. Oftentimes people are reporting vultures, and don't get me wrong, I've seen a turkey vulture in January here before, but it's pretty uncommon to see vultures during the wintertime here. But a bird with a slight dihedral and a short head projection could definitely be a golden eagle. Also, the bald eagles, they really stand out in the landscape. You can really see them. But as I said before, the golden eagles really do blend in. Bald eagles are really blocky. Blocky, B for bald eagle, blocky. They're blocky in shape. Where the golden eagle has more shape to it. You can see much more of a contour to it, more like a red-tailed hawk shape in the trees versus the blocky of the bald eagle. All right, so it's time for a test before we round up here and before we can say we're officially almost done with this program. I want to put you through your paces here. So get ready. You can all do this within your head. I'll be waiting for you to yell it out. All right, so here's your first bird. What is this? What type of eagle is this? Well, hopefully you're saying golden eagle because it has white in the outer patches of the wing. It has a very short head projection, and we can see some golden on the nape. And look at that, that beak is really small. In fact, if you have to look at a bird of prey that is very large, and you have to say to yourself, does that bird have a beak? You're probably looking at a golden eagle. Because if you're looking at a bald eagle, remember Jimmy Durante, that big old schnoz, it'll stand out. So look at that beak. All right, here's another bird for you. Here's a bird feeding on a goat prairie here. And we can see here, it's got some white and black in the tail. But remember, there are some bald eagles that may have tails similar to that in some stages of development. So what else are we going to look for? We're going to look right here, and we're going to find the golden nape, and a fairly small bill. All right, give you a second here. Take a look at these two. All right, over here we have a golden eagle. Very good. Golden eagle, because the white is in the, white is in the outer part of the wings. And over here then, we have a bird with deodorant. That's a bald eagle, our nation's symbol, is wearing that deodorant. And so there's white in the wing pit. So very good if you got that right. How about this one? Kind of a small beak, looks like a golden nape. We use another field mark, then we see the feathered legs. So I always use more than one field mark. All right, here we go. I'm hoping you all got this one right. Bald eagle, good job. Remember, it takes 5 or 6 years for those bald eagles to get that complete white head and tail. Up until that time, there's a lot of development, but in that first year of life, that's when they look most like a golden eagle. All right, a couple more for you here. This bird here does have some golden feathers, but notice that they're on the top of the head and not on the nape. So what are their field marks? Okay, it's got a big, looks like a big dark beak. And look at there, there's the deodorant there, and there are bald legs. Bald legs, deodorant, and a big beak. You've got a juvenile bald eagle. Good job if you got that right. All right, here we've got a golden nape. We've got furred legs. Yeah, always use more than one field mark, and habitat is also key. So use multiple field marks, including habitat. Here we've got a bison for you. Yeah, I know, sorry. All right, here's one for you. Take a look at this. All right, everybody, we've got a big, dark beak. Hold on, we've got some golden on the leading edge. We've also got some golden here though, don't we? But we don't have any gold on the nape. And we've got bald legs, and we've also got deodorant. So we're looking at a juvenile bald eagle, and I hope you are all saying that. I really truly believe that after our discussion, you know that that's a bald eagle. What I want to make sure you know that this particular picture right here that you're looking at was right here on this sign at Theodore Roosevelt National Park at the main overlook, where they had this particular sign, and this is what it said right underneath that photo that you just looked at. Don't forget to look up. Golden eagles glide high on thermal air currents. Yes, they do, but this particular bird you're looking at here, as you all now know, is a juvenile bald eagle. So everybody makes mistakes. It can be a challenge, but hopefully you've learned a few things tonight that'll help make you feel more confident about making those identifications. I want to encourage you to help with the survey this coming year. Third Saturday in January. Starting in November, we'll be doing training sessions. And as I mentioned before, we'll be able to do them virtually this year. So I really am looking for some people up in your area of the woods, wherever you're from, northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, Illinois, wherever you may be joining in tonight. We are looking for surveyors. You'll go through a training session, couple-hour training session. We'll get you out there. You will then know what you're looking for, and you can help us with a survey. And these citizen science projects are so valuable. We have learned so much about golden eagles in this area because of folks like you getting out there and making these observations. When I started the Golden Eagle survey, I was just a private guy on my own, having fun looking at golden eagles and enjoying it. And I wanted to share that with others. And so I started the survey to get others out enjoying looking for golden eagles, and also to prove there were many here before. But then that led into my job here at the National Eagle Center. That then led into my job working with the Golden Eagle Project, and all the data that we've learned and shared with you today is here because of folks like you. So get involved with Citizens Science Project whenever you can. They are very valuable. If you'd like to help with the survey, you can give me an email here at golden@nationaleaglecenter.org. And I'm hoping that you are all not feeling like this right now and more confused than ever about the Golden Eagles that winter here in Wisconsin and Minnesota. I want to thank Jeff once again and the Horicon Marsh Bird Festival folks for having me here as your speaker here tonight. It's been an honor to be able to share with you. I wish we could all been together and gone birding and shared some fun and some laughter, but we'll do that down the road. And I hope that you'll come down and visit the National Eagle Center here in Wabasha. Thank you all to the photographers that have helped me over the years here with supplying photos. I greatly appreciate that. They help me do these programs, so thank you there. And then there again, once again, my phone number there if you'd like to give me a call, or there is my 2 emails. They're both similar, Scott or golden@nationaleaglecenter.org. And now is an opportunity that if you have any questions, things that I didn't make clear or you wanted to learn more about, I'd be glad to answer those questions. I'm hoping.
Excellent presentation, Scott.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody has any questions, feel free to let us.
Let's
Hey,
check.
Scott.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I was wondering, I'm in Southeast Wisconsin and we have our bald eagle numbers keep going up year after year. But, you know, we don't really have golden eagles, even though we've got lots of wild turkeys that, you know, they could snack on. But is this just not the habitat for them? I mean, I don't know if they might eventually start showing up or if we just really can't expect to see them here in Southeast Wisconsin.
Yeah, so you're south of Madison?
Yeah, I'm actually in the Milwaukee area.
Milwaukee,
But, you know, it's
okay.
like even Horicon. I mean, I don't know, do we see
Yeah.
bald eagles in Horicon? I've never seen one there, but, or I'm sorry,
Golden
golden
eagle-
eagles in
golden eagles,
Horicon.
yeah.
But
Yeah. What I would say is that I do believe that there is places that we haven't found them in, that they're probably there. As I said before, if you have the forest habitat, for the most part, that is one of the areas that they rely on. Doesn't have to be the hilly country as we've learned here in the Driftless area, but forest is pretty key to that. The golden eagles in the eastern United States act very different than the birds in the western United States. So if you've been out west before and you've seen a golden eagle, you probably saw it sitting out in the open country or even on a telephone pole out in the open. In the 25 years, I've only seen a couple of different times golden eagles sitting on telephone poles here, just because they prefer sitting in the trees where they really blend into the landscape. And so makes it more challenging. And so in your part of Wisconsin, you know, I would encourage you that if you have an interest, we can look at some habitat, look at some maps for your area, and I can definitely design a route area based on areas where I think golden eagles might be, and get you out on survey day to at least look. And even if we don't find any, it is very valuable data to know what the habitat looks like. And so I would still encourage you to consider that, and by sending me an email at golden@nationaleaglecenter.org. But I do think that they're in more areas than we might be overlooking. Yeah. Good question.
You always can check eBird as well if you're just looking for to be able to see one. I know I always think about it a little bit too late in the wintertime, and it gets to be late February, early March, and like, oh, I want to go see a golden eagle. And we tried 1 or 2 spots by Devil's Lake in Sauk County.
Yep.
And we were just a little bit late or didn't have the right day or something. We were unsuccessful, but it's generally a pretty good spot there.
Yeah, and I think that says another thing, Jeff. I would say 2 things. One is persistence, and time spent in the field in the likely areas. As I said before, they really do blend into the landscape. And so until these birds are in flight, where they're going to be more visible, you know, whenever you have a golden eagle in flight, you know, I want you to stay safely away, not harassing it, moving with it, but watching it and watching where these birds land. because as I said before, they have very strong perch site fidelity coming back to those same perching areas year after year. So once you learn those and find those, that helps bring your chances up. And so spending the time in the area gets you to learn those things. Yep. And then the other thing I would point out is that also remember that anywhere across in southeast Wisconsin, northwest Wisconsin, central part of the state, you do have the chance of seeing golden eagles during migration. What we're talking about is the wintering birds. And a place like Horicon definitely has opportunities, you know, because we do know that there are the birds that I mentioned down by Bernheim in Kentucky, the ones that flew together or nested together up in the same area, you know, they nest near a waterfowl production area. And on the eastern states, on the Atlantic side, golden eagles are fairly regularly seen going after ducks and gulls and things like that along the coast. So definitely could be areas like Horicon if the habitat is there when they're in migration. Sure. Anybody else?
Could you maybe talk a little bit about your upcoming campaign to enlarge the facility there?
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Glad to talk about that. And so besides remodeling our building here on the riverfront, we're going to be taking the office space that's been used in the past. We're going to be moving that to a building on Main Street. And the second floor will be added to exhibit area. As I mentioned some of the things before, but we're also working with the Dakota Nation to add more relationship with the Native American and their connection to the eagle, as the Press and Cook collection really focuses on after settlement times. And so we want to expand that. And so we're going to be doing that. But also we're going to be remodeling our first floor classroom that will now become another eagle area. So we'll have an area for more observations of our eagle ambassadors. We're going to be building our new classroom across the alley from the National Eagle Center on a Main Street building that we own. We actually own 4 buildings on Main Street that we're going to be remodeling. They are historic buildings, so we're going to be working on restoring those to the proper time period and things like that. And then also related to that, outside between us and the bridge, there's a condos. Well, between that area, there's an open space if you've been to Wabasha before. And in that open space, we purchased that land at the Eagle Center, and we're going to be making an outdoor amphitheater right on the Mississippi River. So you'll be able to look at the Mississippi River while watching one of our engaging programs with one of our ambassadors. There might be a music event down there. And so we're excited about that opportunity. And then it'll also be another remodeling of our eagle weathering area. So a weathering area is where our eagles that are our ambassadors go in the morning, typically. They could go in the daytime as well, but it's an area for them to be outside and get a chance to get weather. They get a chance to be out there, whether it's raining or snowing or a high humidity. It's their opportunity to get that time outdoor, because the other time they're in working as the ambassadors being shown to the visitors. Yeah, we've got lots of cool things happening. So we will be closing in October. So we will still be doing some programming. So watch our website, like us on social media, Facebook, whatever. We do eagle field trips, habitat tours, where we take you out into the habitat looking for bald eagles. Most definitely we'll do golden eagles again once the winter season arrives. So if you want to be able to go on a field trip and have that opportunity to see a golden eagle in the wild, come on down to the National Eagle Center and check out one of our habitat tours. But we also do behind the scenes tours where you can get a chance to learn more about how we take care of our eagles and learn some of the training things that we do and help with the food prep and all of those cool things that it takes to work with an eagle on a daily basis. So those are some of the programs that we'll be doing during our closure as well while we're getting remodeled.
Excellent, excellent. I just got the thinking. I was there before the new building was built, when it was just a storefront in downtown.
Yep.
Wabasha, so that was a while back.
Yep, I started back in 2006, just before we moved here and into this building. And so, yeah, I got to work in the storefront location. There's now a chocolate shop in that particular building if you come to Wabasha today. But quite a difference from our storefront where we had, 3 eagles and, a few quasi displays and the office space and the auditorium all in one room, where it's quite a difference to come to the National Eagle Center today.
So last call for questions.
Scott, I'm wondering, how many eagles do you have there at the center now on display?
On display, typically we have 3 on display on a daily basis. We have other eagles that we take care of, but we rotate eagles off display. We have another building, as I mentioned, on Main Street where we have them right now, but part of the expansion work that will be working here in October is remodeling that first floor classroom. And so those eagles will always be on site. They may not always be on display because we want to have a space for them to have days off. Just like I have days off too. I love my job, but I don't want to work every single day. And the birds don't do that either. And so we will have an opportunity for them to have their own areas, what we call Mehus, and they'll have their days off Mehus. Yeah.
Okay. Is it Donald that passed away?
It is. Yep. Donald the Golden Eagle did pass away about a year ago here.
Okay.
This whole COVID situation, but he passed away from a stroke. He had a stroke. He was a bird that was at least 17 years of age, but based on, we knew he was when he came in, he was an adult, so he was at least 5. He'd been here so many years. We knew he was at least 17, but our gut told us that he was probably more in his 30s, if not older. He acted like an older bird may do as they age, just as we may age. They're a little bit slower and, whatever. We all slow down a little bit. And we noticed that more with him. And so after that stroke, unfortunately, he was gone.
Aw. Thank you.
Yep. So we're definitely in the, looking for another eagle, golden eagle, but we're also looking for another bald eagle at this point as well. But once again, not every single bird that is injured that needs to find a home may find a good home here, because each facility is a little bit different in what they are going to ask of that bird to do as an ambassador. And so we all have our own unique personalities. They have their own birdinalities. And so some birdinalities work well in a situation like this and others might be better. So, we really do look through the birds and really want to make sure that it's a good fit, because these birds, in human care may live into their 30s or 40s. Average age for an eagle in the wild is 20 to 25 years, but in human care, 30 to 40s would not be uncommon. We've had one of our eagles that we have right now is Angel, who is 22. She's a bird that fell out of her nest up in northern Wisconsin. She's been in human care pretty much her whole life. So she's a bird that will probably live well into her 40s, if not longer than that. But we want to make sure that they're the right fit. So we take our time assessing each bird's abilities.
Okay, Scott, I don't know if you can see it, but I'll read you the comments here. Excellent presentation. Thank you. Very informative. Wonderful presentation. Great presentation. Very informative. Thank you very much. Great presentation. And from a coworker here, it says, great presentation. Our 6-year-old is now a pro at the difference between bald and golden eagles.
Awesome. See, that's great. Good job. Congratulations. Yep. I really appreciate hearing that. I'm glad that you all learned something, but our youth are definitely important for the conservation of the future of these birds. And so I really appreciate hearing that. Thank you for sharing.